have the roam in backup. Now, typically we see like AD carry support and AD carry jungle picked up in this rotation, and it is going to be Hecarim and the Aphelios. So not really going for, Karma Ezreal or something in that regard, going for the handshake we often see in the AD carry role.
I'm just glad that my very obvious decision to push that ADCs are going to be important in this one actually panned out instead of it going the completely opposite way. We also get the Aphelios for the first time of the night, which is going to be very interesting. It's instant lock-ins across the board, though. You saw that Aphelios Hecarim? Well, anyone's legend lock in the Lee Sin LeBlanc.
Yeah, that is a hard mid jungle to go up against, right? And we've seen teams apply pressure to Hecarim if they had mid prior. Now, EDG can pick a mid laner to match and negate, and it looks like they might go for that. We saw this matchup earlier, well, actually last week, from Scout into the LeBlanc, and he really just ran away with it, constantly finding like charm flash opportunities to pick off the LeBlanc. So, I like the EDG match to try and not give too much in favor to AL's strong mid jungle combo. And now both teams have a jungler and mid and AD carry. We're looking towards top and support. I think in particular, Gwen still available, Jace still available. So a lot of power picks on the cards.
Indeed, I just think it's so funny that, we were listening to interviews in the last series itself, but just generally seeing the Ahri come in. It's all about the engages, man. You're just getting so much engage potential from this pick, as well as, pairing it up with the jungle. The fact that EDG have the Hecarim and the Ahri, I'm very terrified for how these the fights start off, at least, for anyone's legend. But now in the second phase, that's where things get whittled down a little bit more. We get the Tahm Kench banned by EDG, Gwen banned by anyone's legend.
Yeah, so EDG trying to thin the tools they have to give peel to the Jinx. Bear in mind, LeBlanc Lee Sin, for the most part, pretty aggressive, right? Obviously, Lee Sin can kick targets off the Jinx, but having an element of protection really valuable. Getting rid of the Tahm Kench, and also the Alistair, who can play that sort of peel duty, sitting on top of the Jinx and knocking things away. The AL, they ban away that Gwen. They could look for a support ban here, right? Potentially something like the Nautilus or maybe the Leona, depending on which one they favor. But Jace could also be something they just opt to take off the cards. There's a lot of options, and I feel like EDG pretty comfortable, right? They end up going for the Thresh ban, and here you could take top and take something that's strong blind, right? You could take the Jace, you could take the Gnar, or you could just pick support here if there's something you're like, we are comfortable regardless of what you pick into this. And looks like that might be Nautilus in this situation.
Giving Flandre the counter pick in the first game coming through in this series itself. Nautilus locked in for EDG, so keep on piling the CC in the engage, Aux, because apparently that's all EDG want. Look at the amount of CC and the time that they can CC people with the setup they have already. You gotta find an answer to that for anyone's legend. They look like they want to at least try to get that good matchup, stable matchup at least in the bottom lane, at least for QiuQiu to have something to stand on and something to say. And I see the Leona as a good answer to that.
Yeah, full bot lane trade-off, right? Aphelios and Jinx, and then Leona Nautilus. Very, very common picks. Both of those most played in their role for the LPL, so nothing too crazy there. Now, there's just one in ZDZ, what is going to pick the top lane, right? You already have that really strong mid-jungle, so I would prefer something in the top lane that is going to at least ramp up a bit, and Camille definitely fits the bill, right? Gnar was being hovered before, but I feel like as much as Gnar is a fine blind, I want something for Xiaohao to play towards, right? Not just the Jinx, but also a top laner who can benefit. That does mean that EDG probably just going to take the Gnar here, right? Going to hold up pretty well against the Camille. Yes, the Camille can definitely set up ganks, particularly Pro 6, right? With the ultimate, but you are pretty solid in those team fights. And I kind of feel like, for me, anyone's Legends composition, I am looking at that mid jungle, particularly level 3, right? Level 6, Ahri and Hecarim get a lot of power, a lot of mobility. But level 3, Lee Sin, LeBlanc, super strong. I want to see ganks mid. I want to see players around the map. And I want to see these sides snowballed. If Camille and Jinx get ahead, I think anyone's legend take this game. But I do worry EDG have a lot of team fight tools at their disposal. And we saw how strong the Hecarim Ahri can be at just punishing targets, right? If anyone's legend on ahead, I feel like I really struggle to see Betty playing these team fights out without just being collapsed on.
Yeah, I love to see a little bit of the comfort coming out, though, right? Camille being the most played champion for ZDZ. Obviously, Betty with the comfort champion and Jinx. This will be his 17th game comparatively to the next highest champion for him being played was Aphelios at 4. It's incredible. And this is the kind of stuff you need to make sure you grab for anyone's legend when you're going up against EDG, because we've already said so many times, like, this is going to be a difficult matchup. But with this early aggression, with the fact that they're trying to catch EDG off kilter and put them off balance a little bit, that is what you have to be executing on for anyone's legend as we come into this first game.
Yeah, so we can talk a bit about this mid jungle more in depth, right? We saw Scout play this matchup last week, and charming, so effective. You can catch the charm at the right time. Not only do you stop, well, CC LeBlanc, but you can also interrupt her distortion in midair so she doesn't get the damage, right? Especially if she like QWs, you can't proc it. Really powerful tool. So a lot of skill expression, really fun match to see. But I will say, we've seen time and time again Hecarim get punished in the early game. I want to see that from AL.
Gotta see some punishment today as we hit the Rift for the second series of the night. EDG attempting to lock in playoffs tonight for themselves. And AL want to play spoiler. We'll see how game one goes down as we get to it.
Yeah, early vision, vitally important. And again, I want to see AL trying to pressure the Hecarim early. Time and time again, we've seen those invades. Try and make things happen. Try and force him out of his own jungle. And that's the thing. Hecarim particularly weak on his first clear and pre-6 just because you don't have a dash that can go over walls, right? Especially if you're against Lee Sin, LeBlanc, Camille, right? If they invade your jungle, they can all hop over walls and you just can't. Pre-6, right? You have Ghost. You really can't do anything.
Yeah, you absolutely can. We'll see the early invade from EDG here just a little bit. Try and catch out who is down here. Play a little bit of that vision game, but so far not going to be so for either side, actually, it looks like. We do finally get the vision from Forge up towards that chicken camp. So opposite side starts for these junglers will mean a little bit of discretion in where they want to path to.
Yeah, and I like this ward from Scout, right? Just walk in very late as the minions have already crashed, just to grab that bit of vision. So if Xiaohao does path down towards the Raptors, you'll see. If he doesn't, you also get that information as well. Just that's the main thing for me. EDG is tracking this Lee Sin and surviving till level 6. They get a lot of momentum at that point now. I'm looking at Betty, right, on this Jinx. Oh, and that's actually the interaction I was talking about. You know, I'm going to hold that point. That's the interaction. Meiko, you Q the Leona as she's popped her E, right? So you interrupt it, and it just basically means the Leona can't get on top of you. The thing with Leona is, into most melee champions, she kind of just stomps them, because once she's in melee range, your Q is a 5-second cooldown. It does so much damage with your passive. So interesting enough, Nautilus kind of wants to play this lane like kiting backwards, right? Whenever Leona wants to go in, you try and interrupt it, and you just keep her at like arm's length away. Well, slightly longer than arm's length, because she's arm's
an anchor's length away. How about that?
Anchor's length, perfect.
I got your back, dog. I got your back. But it's still all about, you know, who the ebb and flow of the engages down there. It is so funny to see the Zenith blade take so long that you can throw out a gigantic anchor in time to stop it. But hey, swords and anchors fight another day here in the bot lane against EDG and AL. Do see the pathing still going pretty nominally for both junglers so far. Just going for the full clears, at least for both sides so far.
Yeah, and we see the pressure coming out mid, right? But fortunately, Xiaohao's been tracked. They know where he is. Bot lane at the moment for EDG are pushed in, but the wave is going to bounce. That's the concern. That's the gank angle I'm thinking for the side of AL. So could see an opportunity if EDG are forced forwards. You can see a little bit of trading coming out from Betty, but he's specifically not trying to hit the minions. Potentially set something up, but the time being, Xiaohao's going to look through the jungle. Nothing there, but the information will be provided. And I think ultimately for Jiejie, he's done a full clear, right? And got a scuttle. He's been untouched. This is pretty good for the Hecarim. This is kind of what you're hoping for, right? And again, once he hits level 6, things do become trickier. The Lee Sin and LeBlanc definitely still have that agency, but a bit of power goes in return.
It does, and we'll get the reset coming out already from Jiejie, meaning he'll be back on the map a little bit quicker than Xiaohao, unless Xiaohao wants to stick around and go for something. But the way the wave states are right now, it looks like nothing's going to happen too fast, too early on here. We do have Dragon at about a minute, and with Jiejie pathing down here, maybe it's a signal of the early Dragon stacking for EDG, as it is a Hex Tech Dragon to start us off. He's going down the lane right now.
Yeah, I think the critical thing here is that the wave is pushing out, so you just kind of want to be in position to cover and make sure your bot lane is okay to push this one out. I think EDG have seen that Betty isn't there, so they're just going to know they're comfortable to push this in. No real contest coming in.
Jojo with the stutter step. I love it.
The critical thing there, though, is they stop the freeze, right? If Jojo freezes, that can be pretty painful, but very much this is just EDG like, okay, support the lanes, make things easy, and Jiejie still just farming, right? He is just continuing on his journey through the jungle.
I didn't know that this is what we came for in AL versus EDG. I saw the Lee Sin. I was like, oh yeah, early first path going, ganks, find something, skirmishing. We got JJ. No, it's just going to be the farm fest for now until we get those big objective fights. Obviously looking at the 8-minute marker for the LPL where we get the 5v5 team fights. Although we didn't get that last series, it is JJ going for an aggressive path here towards the bot side though.
Well, critically, I think the thing I would say is that we'll get some vision to still get out, but it's mid lane, right? There's a lot of setup for Forge onto Scout, but Scout has been pushed in this whole time, so he's not really being threatened by any ganks in the position he's in, right? For the most part of this game is he being in a really comfortable spot. Now, the good side of that is you can't get ganked. The bad side is it leaves your jungler vulnerable, but JJ has just dodged Xiaohao completely so far, and he's continued to farm. So, AL, things gone slowly. Not exactly super favorable. And again, I will say that, right, the Camille and the Jinx, very, very strong in the later stages, very serviceable. When it comes to the mid game, Ahri, Hecarim, really powerful in those team fights and can be a bit concerning. Now, AL would toy with the idea of starting up the dragon. They do have priority mid, but I feel like this is a bit risky.
Level 6 has been marked for the mid laners as well. Trying to get some mobility from them here now that we've gotten that at least surpassed. JJ moving into the pit, but the engage comes in for Meiko, and now we're looking at first blood potentially. It's still the knockback going on to Xiaohao, putting him away from the fight. Meiko in some trouble here now. The Rockets just don't have the distance just yet. Betty firing away. No first blood to come.
Yeah, a lot of damage committed onto this. Oh, Flandre.
Flandre's going for it, though. He's like, man, y'all didn't get the kill down there. All right, I got to make something happen up here, but won't be so. ZDZ beautifully using the Hextech ultimatum.
Yeah, dodges away from the follow-up stun. And that's the thing with the Gnar, you kind of just throw your ult out whenever you have Mega because it's such a short cooldown. But yeah, we saw a scenario where basically EDG committed a lot of damage onto Xiaohao, who just dashed out. And then there was a turnaround, right? Again, you're in melee range as Meiko off the Leona. You will just end up being beaten up in that scenario, so I had to flash away. And nothing really come for it. Still quite slow-paced, but still, it feels like the teams are kind of testing the waters in this situation.
At least, and not exactly for the fans of the high adrenaline, high octane LPL. This is exactly what you're getting, but that's where the late game team fights in the LPL pay off dividends. The fact that we get to see so many sporadic, crazy fights and then ending up in usually the 80s versus 80s, last to the death gun show going on there. It's always a fun time. We also have level 6 almost achieved for the bottom lanes here, which does help out a little bit more in terms of the engages. As speaking of engage, Meiko will push AL off of the wave here, trying to get that to crash.
Yeah, a lot of trading back and forth, and Viper with the red-white weapons, scary to go in there, right? He can really just shred through basically anyone in the 2v2, and Meiko consistently looking for damage here.
Viper also putting in some work on the QiuQiu, but Betty hits the flame choppers. Moonlight Vigil has to come out to get the healing from the Severum version of it. Betty again still is good on the Jinx, as is most of LPL, but him specifically will always find damage windows.
Yeah, I think as well there, if you let yourself get low against the Jinx, there's the potential for the ult to come out. But, you know, EDG's bot lane fishing for advantages, as is kind of expected at this point. This is really what they look to do consistently. So we can kind of take stock of the game, right? I think we kind of set up this mid jungle of the Lee Sin and LeBlanc. Like, don't get me wrong, they don't just suddenly fall off post level 6, but I was definitely looking. Oh, ZDZ has to flash.
Oh my god, Flandre is just taking it to him up there. Burns the flash. Now ZDZ in a little bit more trouble as JJ will be taking the Rift Herald #1 of EDG.
Yeah, so a lot of pressure coming out top lane. And kind of what I was saying is like 3-6 is where the Ahri without the ult and the Hecarim, well, obviously without his ult as well, are vulnerable. The fact they haven't found their window just kind of means that EDG are kind of smooth sailings with this one. They are going to pick up that first Herald. The trade-off is a dragon on the other side. Personally, I think a lot of teams would rather have that first Herald, can translate into a fair bit of gold. But at least AL trading it for something.
We have QiuQiu and Xiaohao down here trying to at least secure a little bit of vision around the Dragon Pit. Meiko will be clearing that one out. The push enables Scout in the mid lane to get his back off. Actually, he did not complete it. He was backing for a long time. Decided not to take that one. And we're back to focusing towards this farming style play for both these junglers.
We scaling. We
scaling,
ramping
boys.
up, right?
We scaling.
Everyone's taking
what
it kind
kind
of chill.
of scale though? Is it like one of those like old timey like
Lizard.
silver scales with like the chains?
Lizard scales.
Lizard scales. That's not scaling.
I mean, they're scales, right?
Yes. I mean, they are technically, but I don't know if that's how
I know
you
where
want
I'm
to
going
use
with this one, right? I have no idea
but
where
I know where
this is going,
Xiaohao's going. He's going to bot lane. He'll be spotted out, though. Double wards from EDG prevent that move up to the second brush. The control ward, though, from QiuQiu will make sure that that goes down. And he's spending a decent amount of time here. We'll be getting the back off as we speak.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't really think of Lee Sin as a pick to scale up, right, and farm up. And so far, Jiejie's been having a pretty chill time now. The wave is pushing out here, so the Hecarim's going to show up. Might actually end up using the Herald to apply some pressure, right? See if that ends up coming out, but could just be walking in the wave for his bot lane. I don't think there's too much emphasis to need the Herald right now. And again, this is kind of what we're seeing, right? I like this play from Jiejie. He knows that if you gank, there's risks, right? There's the potential that Lee Sin's there. You get the turnaround. All he's doing is just enabling his lanes, helping them walk in the waves, and then he's able to back off again and go back to farming up the jungle, which he's comfortable doing.
And that's where the trigger pulling later on is so impactful for the team of EDG. We already stated how much CC they have, how much lockdown they can chain together, and Jiejie will have the Onslaught of Shadows. He already does, but he doesn't need to use it until those big team fights come, until he can land, you know, the 3-4 person fears and completely change the fights.
For sure. And I think particularly looking at Betty, right? I think this, if the Jinx survives in the team fights, I think AL in a really good shot, right? The Jinx and the Camille in particular scale exceptionally, but there's a lot of tools from the side of EDG to shut that down, and we're seeing some of them at play here as Jiejie goes for a dive.
Rift Herald spawn first, and ZDZ will be able to back away. Xiaohao Forge on their way here. Wow, we're getting everybody coming this way except for the ADCs, even though Viper is walking up this way. First tower will go down to EDG.
Yeah, and you know, that just came from the natural pressure from the Gnar. If that tower was healthier, I don't think they would have gone for that play. Flandre procs to demolish. They managed to get the full thing. And with that, they're over 2,400 gold ahead. 11 minutes and 0-kill game to be this far ahead. Pretty solid. It's kind of showing the value, right, of having the Herald over that first dragon. And we'll see if they can continue that momentum. You can see a lot of that lead is in the top lane. 1,000 gold lead between Camille and Gnar right now.
And that's where it's so interesting, because we were saying how Anyone's Legend drafted this very aggressive style comp, looking for picks, looking to get active with Xiao, but Xiao bought into this farming style. We'll see if it pays out as mid lane now. We're getting everybody joining. QiuQiu locking down Scout. Scout is burning, and he goes down. Jiejie with the Onslaught of Shadows, though, is turning it around. Look at the AoE damage. They get one, but they can't follow up anymore unless Jiejie wants to activate that devastating charge. And Meiko is right there to back him up. Still a bit of an uneven fight. The clear will be there, and EDG respond.
Man, I could not believe Scout nearly actually lived there. Pop the potion to try and survive the ignite. Does go down. There's a trade back, but obviously First Blood is worth more, and the kill went on to Meiko.
Oh no,
Oh,
they knew.
Is he looking?
Oh, beautiful. Hextech ultimatum gets him away from the Gnar ulti, and now Flandre is forced to flash after the stun, also with a nice cheeky little sidestep.
Yeah, managed to disengage, but I like we're seeing some proactivity from AL. It does feel slower, right? I would have loved to see this sort of play earlier. Like, this play on a Scout goes a lot smoother if he isn't level 6, but obviously layer the CC quite effectively, but it's that interrupt from Meiko.
Yeah.
The ultimate actually stops the Sonic Wave, the recast from connecting, and so as a result, Scout nearly lives, but still not quite enough, but they managed to trade the kill back.
And those are the kinds of plays you needed to see, as you kind of mentioned to earlier for Anyone's Legend. You pick out, and I was kind of highlighting to it earlier before that happened, was you got the LeBlanc and the Lee Sin. You need to get ahead on this. You need to get those Dark Seal stacks going for Forge, and especially be able to blow up the backline at any moment to have that threat. But until then, you have EDG who are forcing big fights because they have the team fight advantage. Speaking of, Dredgeline misses. Scout getting locked up here under the tower. Not just yet, but Zenith Blade connects. Might have overextended QiuQiu, though, and he almost dies. EDZ wait for the hook shot. Forge over the wall. Meiko almost dying, but they do get Scout after all. Poor Scout.
A bit overzealous, and they lock down Scout. Now Viper does have the Cleanser Flash, should just be able to walk this one out. Doesn't even have to use them, but ultimately an overzealous attempt from EDG. The response comes in quickly, and now AL should be able to pick up the second dragon.
Stacking up the dragons is now the name of the game for Anyone's Legend. EDG wanting to put a stop to that. We are a bit later in those dragon stackings, though. Second dragon at 14.5 minutes. And Flandre constantly pushing this top side while ZDZ was away.
And also a big one, right? firstly, gold lead is closed a bit, right? It was about 1,500 before, just 1,000 now. But also an Inferno Soul for AL would be absolutely massive. Now, we see the replay. Critically, the CC doesn't connect. And then they kind of back away from the dive. The Scout, it's not so easy to back away when there's a Leona on you. ZDZ dashes in, tries to catch out Scout. This rocket combined with the damage from LeBlanc is enough to take down Scout. And just a little bit of an overzealous dive that EDG were hesitant on committing for. I will say that they only lost one member, right? It could have been worse if they committed heavily and lost multiple. In return, we see AL setting up a play on the bot side. Resets came out from EDG. They're looking towards the Herald. The AL should just be able to pick up this tower instead.
This is spicy. They're waiting in the wings to see who comes. Flandre not going to fall for it. Mega Death Rocket kickback. He did fall for it. He's almost Mega Gnar, though. Can he get the health increase? No, the stun, and Xiaohao gets the kill.
I just feel like, why is Flandre there, right? This is not like... I know we obviously see it from the observer's perspective, but it is not exactly subtle, right? Your entire team's going towards the top side for the Herald. They don't see anyone. Oh, I wonder where they could be, right? And he just shows up. I guess maybe a bit overzealous, thinking he could survive this. But either way, gets taken down. And not only do they get the tower for Betty, but they will also take that kill as well.
Really good to be getting some resources for Betty here. As we said, the main carry, it feels like in the late game, but Forge and Xiaohao's connection this game has definitely been a difference maker. We'll see in the replay in the picture-in-picture that unfortunate setup of events against Flandre. He tried so hard to get the Mega Gnar.
Yeah, it was close. I mean, I still think he would have probably died even if he got it. But at least would have lasted a bit more time, right? Would have looked a bit more impressive. Either way, it's now a situation where AL actually have a gold lead on the back of that. So this is pretty positive, right? Gold lead and 2 dragons in pocket. But my concern is this next dragon fight. I think if AL can navigate it well, they could be in with a good chance. If they win that next dragon fight, not only is there the chance of the Baron spawning 30 seconds after, but also just the gold lead it would give, especially if it's on a Betty or ZDZ, would be substantial. And they are going to throw it on the Herald mid from EDG and look to just take down this tier 1. I don't think the AL will be able to defend this at all, but they should be able to keep the tier 2 alive.
Trying to even back out the gold lead here for EDG as we see the side lane push still from Flandre. That will be important as he continues to keep it alive. The side lane. Yeah, I can't believe.
I mean, just honestly, right? It's not.
I mean, it's a breath away, but you know.
I wouldn't feel safe standing on the tower. That's all I'm saying, right? But
the charm and the sonic wave. Oh my goodness, Xiaohao, yeah, flash over because they were gonna chase that.
Yeah, and actually, I love this timing, right, from EDG. Oh, more fights coming out. Yeah, but Forge. I love this timing because you think about what's burned from EDG, right? It's the Nautilus Assault. It's right now the Ahri ultimate. Those are going to be backup for Dragon. But you just burnt Lee Sin's flash, which is by all means a very powerful tool. I think we can all work out why. And that's not going to be up for the Dragon fight. So I love these plays. They normally come about like 2 minutes before the objective, where you just look to burn summoners from the enemy side. EDG, I mean, if they got the kill, great, but they didn't even need the kill from the Lee Sin. Just burning the summoner is enough. And by the time we get back to the next dragon, they'll have those tools available once again. Xiaohao will be a little bit neutered.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at item completions here as well, seeing if we get those second item spikes for this next fight as well. And it looks like we'll be a little bit far off of that one, and the resets probably won't be there just about for EDG. But I presume that EDG will have a full fight for this, right? They have TP away for Flandre. They have the strength, at least in their first mythics completed and their team fight potential that they have. They aren't scaled to the fact that they can automatically win these fights, and we've seen AL trudge back into this game and even the gold lead up for themselves. But it's all about the concerted effort of EDG as a whole in these front-to-back fights.
And that's something I'll say is, even if it goes late, I still don't think it's ever a clear-cut thing for EDG, just because Jinx and Camille, right? But they do have great tools, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking at what Jiejie and Scout can do. We saw this combo last series, where the Hecarim Ahri dive together on a target. EDG pushing up aggressively, trying to get mid-priority, and they will just be able to force AL back to an extent, but still hard to approach that Jinx. Now moving into the river. Remember, watch the engage. Viper chunked.
Mega Death Rocket will be body blocked by Meiko. Dragon is going to be started on point, but it's still 12 seconds away, and ZDZ is getting a free tower on the side lane, and he has TP available.
Yeah, so we'll actually pull the trigger now to join.
They're still getting a lot of pop damage there onto the members from Viper as well, but EDG have backed themselves into a bit of a predicament here with the flank coming in from Forge. AL waiting for EDG to start it up so they can position around the sides. ZDZ with the hook shot over the wall and Forge over the back with a distortion. Keep an eye out for how they position around this as Jiejie taking a lot of damage. Solar Flare connects. Glacial Augment slowing them down. They're all grouped up, but can it be enough? They're trying to get Viper, but Viper is kiting the beautiful movement, but AL now have Betty online. The excitedness is starting to happen, and Moonlight Vigil, Mega Gnar into the wall is not enough for Flandre. A double kill for Betty. Oh, is it going to be a triple? Betty wants it. No, it's Forge. And 7-1 is anyone's legend, and they are upsetting EDG in this first game.
And they crushed the approach on that fight. Both Forge and ZDZ approaching on those flanks make it so difficult for EDG to try anything. If EDG dive forwards, they just leave their backline exposed. You kind of see the setup in this situation, right? ZDZ there at top, just off the screen below, is Forge on the LeBlanc. Then they look for this engage and see how they dive in basically simultaneously. Viper really threatened, right? Scout locked in the Hextech ultimatum, just nothing they can do. And all the meantime, because the Hecarim and the Ahri were playing defensive, because the Gnar was playing defensive, look at Betty. Basically full HP, untouched.
And as goes the tale of the take, a lot of the times when you're seeing Betty popping off of these team fights, he just seems to have invisible armor around him. Maybe it's the plot armor, maybe it's arcane, maybe it's powder, who knows? But it just doesn't seem to be the focus of enemy teams when Betty is popping off, and that is all that anyone's legend want in this game, as now we get the reeling EDG on a 4-minute timer for the next dragon. Infernal Soul, as you said earlier, Aux, is crucial to continue to press down the defending world champion.
I mean, if they get Infernal Soul, it's the fact that LeBlanc becomes from a massive threat to unstoppable, right? If you dash in and just burst with Infernal Soul added, you can really chunk people out with the poke, and that's such a threatening aspect of LeBlanc. Everyone thinks about her ability to 100-0 target if she has time to like land the tether, but if she just dashes in, QR, and then dashes out, that can take Viper down like 40%. And with the Infernal Soul, it's even worse. So very scary. Jinx as well with the long-range autos, with the ramp, with the AoE damage. EDG, about 2,500 gold down, right? And there's still definitely things they can do. They do get that mid-tier 1 eventually. They'll close the gap a little bit. But I want to see them being proactive, right? Using their engage tools. If they let AL collapse on them in a flank like that, they're gonna have a rough time.
And you can talk about scaling all you want, right? But it's all about like who's getting the gold at what moments. And we already said that ZDZ on the Camille will be scary. Already Forge looking terrifying, and you have that front-to-back team fight. But when you get picked apart like you did last fight, that can't happen again, is all I'm saying. And EDG definitely will take note of that, I believe, as they go into the next one. We have about 2 minutes and 50 seconds for that. Baron on the table, but is not a threat, right? The main focus right now for anyone's legend is this dragon stacking. They can secure this Infernal Soul, as you had said. It just makes everything so much more plain and simple. Just go burr.
Yeah, literally. If you get this, it gives you such a massive power spike. And the problem is, EDG are going to be in this awkward position that often happens with when one side has dragon stacked and the others doesn't, where the fight isn't the main focus, right? If EDG win the fight but lose the soul, they're still in a rough spot because the soul is there forever for AL. Whereas on the other side, if AL miss the dragon but get the fight, they then get Baron, right? If they win the fight by enough. And they're not really that bothered about EDG having one dragon, because 5 minutes time, they'll be able to try again. So you often see that happen, and sometimes you'll have scenarios where, like the Hecarim, like Jiejie will have to dive in to smite, and as a result, you don't have that front line engaged, and it gets very messy. So EDG are 100% on the back foot in this situation, and they're going to have to be pretty creative when it comes to this next dragon and sorting it out. It's a minute 45 away, right? And they do have these tools. You can see Scout and Jiejie moving together. These are the two I'm looking at who have the agency.
Setting off the engage is so important. 2 item spikes also important, at least for EDG, to feel like they have something to lie on to here, as the mid lane is the setup. The bait, the trap will not be sprung this time around by AL.
Yeah, fishing for someone to face check, right? I think it's a critical thing. But ultimately, there's no reason for anyone to really go to that top side of the map, right? For the time being, they have a ward on Baron. They know no one's doing it. The next objective is going to be that dragon, you know. EDG will take away the scuttle. That does relieve some pressure, because there was obviously the risk that AL could rush up towards Baron if EDG overcommitted bot side. But at the end of the day, they just need to try and find a setup here. It's 58 seconds before that dragon. AL got their resets in early. They have control in the area. You can see Meiko's only just reset now with Viper as well. So they're going to be slower on the objective. And that's where things get difficult, because as they push through onto the objective, that's when ZDZ and Forge can flank around the side as we saw before. And that's where things get painful.
And the timing works out so nicely for AL. They take the top side tier 2 tower, and now ZDZ will head this way. He has TP, so he can keep the pressure up there while EDG try to get priority in mid as well. Forge getting engaged on. Onslaught of Shadows with the kick away onto Jiejie. Now the TP coming in. Jiejie not having a lot of health, has to get out of dodge. The dredge line not hitting from Meiko is huge. Now ZDZ potentially threatening the engage. Gets the depth charge used onto him, and it's just a back and forth fight here. But AL not having utilized a lot of their tools. They still have Hextech. They still have Solar Flare, and they're moving on to the Dragon. EDG are forced off, and that is Infernal Soul for anyone's legend.
And that's enough, right? Jiejie goes in, doesn't get the kill, and then is chunked out. And that is enough. They know that if they lose the fight and the Dragon, that's also going to mean Baron. That's going to be the game. So they let it go. But man, this must feel so bad. Giving over Infernal Soul at 2 minutes 50. It's a LeBlanc. It's a Jinx as well. The burst damage available to these two, especially rapid fire cannon for the Jinx, that long range auto going to hit even harder now. And I mean, particularly, I'm mostly just scared about Forge, right? Yeah. You'll see a moment that will happen. I'm predicting this, Mazel, right? At some point in this game, Forge is just gonna like dash forward, do a little combo, boom. Someone just you'll blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah, no matter.
It's enabled even more so now that he has that Infernal Soul.
No matter how many bodies Viper has around him, doesn't matter when a Fed LeBlanc with Infernal Soul will pop on you and you don't have a Tom Kench. Like, you're gonna die no matter what. Also, the Lord Doms for Betty is so big here. They're getting tanky on the other side, but that doesn't matter anymore, especially with how far Betty is ahead. The Baron being started by AL means EDG are being forced yet again. Banshee's Veil been popped by Forge. Baron about 3,500. Jiejie, is this the miracle steal? They are forcing this. Moonlight Vigil to ZDZ. I was going to say, AL, you don't need to do this. They still are hovering around at 3,000 health. They do not want to let this go. They smite it down. Jiejie in the pit. Jiejie dead in the grave. And EDG running away here. I don't know if they can make it out. They have Betty chasing him down. The Rockets, the Mega Death. Is it going to hit? It's still Chocho following him up, but Chocho dies. Hextech Ultimatum on the Viper does get the kill for ZDZ, and Betty's now getting excited as well. It is tragedy for EDG. All they had to do was pick this series up easily to get their lock into playoffs, but AL say no, no, no. You have come to our rift this time.
Baron secured and a bunch of kills. And the thing is, right, we often talk about Baron setup. It is so hard to win a smite fight against a Lee Sin with the execute damage. Really nice setup from AL. They felt confident to win the fight with Infernal Soul, and now they'll take that mid inhibitor. 6,500 gold lead to AL. Infernal Soul in pocket. Baron still at play. EDG. These are the world champions, Mazel. The world champions, and they are getting stomped by AL right now.
And look at the kill participation for AL. Everyone is performing. Everyone is a part of this show. Jiejie missing the smite.
Yeah, so hard to compete with the Lee Sin with that execute damage. It felt like AL were on the same page to sync that. But honestly, I feel like this wasn't so much about the Baron. It was about baiting EDG into a fight. And similarly, Chocho there, suicides to allow his team to follow up. The chase down potential for LeBlanc, Camille, Lee Sin, Jinx, all of them able to follow up and share together these kills. And now, taking stock of where we are at, right? 2.5 items pretty much across the board. 3.5 for Betty right now. A Medjai's finished for Forge. It's really feeling rough for EDG. We've talked about the engage potential that the mid jungle has, but they just haven't really shown up. And the thing is, Betty is so strong right now. We talked about this Jinx being a signature for him. And I mean about every other AD carry as well, to be honest. And it's feeling desperate now. Level 15 on Betty, by the way.
Yeah.
Same level as Flandre, highest in the game. Well, higher than anyone in EDG.
NBD, man. No big deal. Betty popping off here. He is insane on this Jinx, but the whole team coming together. They want to end it. Excited for Jinx will help these towers go down, but it's impossible to even deal with the damage that's coming out from AL when they go for the pokes. When Forge is able to get the quick distortions in, some AoE clearing from EDG will help them for now, but it's just a slow and steady burn that AL is forcing onto these world champions, as you were saying.
Yeah, and it feels like EDG just desperate at this point.
Oh, there's the desperation. Flandre doesn't get the Mega Gnar, and now they can turn it. Look at EDG getting the re-engage. Chocho goes low. Mega Death into the distortion. A double kill for Forge. The world champions are cut. They are bloody, and AL take game 1.
I'm just going to say it. If you flip the names, that would have been the expected result. Not only do AL win game 1, but they stomp it, right? They absolutely crush EDG there. And it just didn't even feel close, right? It felt like the early game, EDG were holding up okay, right? And then it got to the point, there was that dragon fight. The beautiful approach from the solo laners on the flank just gave no room for EDG to function, right? The target selection was excellent. You know, Forge knowing that he has to jump on the Aphelios. And on top of that, also, it was ZDZ using the Hextech ultimatum on the Ahri, giving Scout no room to navigate. But, you know, we saw WE with this Hecarim Ahri combo earlier today in the series before. They would like look for picks, they'd play aggressive. This Hecarim Ahri just kind of sat there, right? We really didn't see anything from EDG. It just didn't feel like the same team we saw. I mean, obviously, you know, the World Championship. It didn't feel like the same team we saw earlier this split. They felt really lost.
That's the biggest thing for me is they had the pieces of like we already said they had serious strengths coming into the team fights around objectives, things along those lines. It was completely focused. AL got all 4 of the dragons off the back of great macro play. And this is so interesting. We said that EDG were having a bumpy road of it coming into this one. And it continues to be bumpy, right? It's still a best of 3. And then obviously the world champions deserve some slack. They deserve to have a chance in this series still. But when they lose like that, when they lose to AL in dominant fashion like that, just getting pulled around the map because they didn't do anything proactively, there's got to be a complete change up for them.
And I think in particular, look at the mid jungle, right? Jiejie, 5k damage, Scout, 5k damage. I mean, they felt invisible, right? Forge was super impactful. Xiaohao making these great moves, these great kicks. And it felt like the game, you know, it hit that mid game. I was expecting EDG to really ramp it up. Nothing came from it. 4 dragons easy. Giving up the Infernal Soul. It's not even like EDG tried and then weren't able to execute. It just felt like they kept opting out of these situations until, you know, AL hit critical mass and the game was over. So I think perhaps a revisit towards the draft, but also it just felt like the gameplay wasn't there. It felt like the coordination was missing.
And again, it's just plot armor or something. Betty armor.
Dude,
no,
Jinx,
it's Betty armor at this point.
Nah.
Like, they just went. Chocho and Betty just went against Viper and Meiko and made it look easy in the late game.
You know,
like that is impressive.
We talked about this yesterday on the last day. I'm just gonna say, right, Jinx, if you're a lower ranked team, pick Jinx, get to the team fights, play around her, boom. And I give AL more credit than that. Betty's really good on the Jinx, and they also were so good in those team fights. But man, Jinx just works, right? And I think EDG, you had to pick it yourself or ban it away because they did not have a handle on it in this game.
You know, LPL teams don't like to ban Jinx away. That's just uncommon. That's just unheard of, all right?
That's
so
uncool.